Hello, and welcome to the Cosmic Force vlog. I'm Mark, and I like Star Wars just so much. So much so, in fact, that I've put together this rewatch of the 8 saga films leading up to the rise of Skywalker in December. And I'm not just doing this alone. I roped in my wife, Stephanie, our good friend Matt, and our other roommate, BBO0 here, to share in the experience with us. Yeah, today we're going to be watching Episode 7, The Force Awakens, which is certainly one of my favorites in the new Disney era of Star Wars storytelling, but maybe it's my favorite. I have a lot of fondness for this movie. I loved it so much, more than I can express, when I saw it in theaters, and that's the movie that I really can thank for reinvigorating my lifelong interest in Star Wars. So be here for that. We're going to talk about our feelings about The Force Awakens a little bit, our thoughts, then we're going to watch the movie, and then we'll all catch up afterward to unpack our thoughts and feelings from this rewatch. So yeah, get stoked, folks, because it's going to be a fun one. Yeah! So here we are, folks. The Force Awakens, we finally got here.
I have to say, I'm really looking forward to this rewatch.
Me too.
It's been a long road to get to this point in the series, especially where Return of the Jedi ends up. You know, it's supposed to be the end. Balance has been restored. The Empire's been destroyed. And all of a sudden, 30 years later, there's still more to this story. The balance has not been restored. Just, it's shifted from one bad guy to another bad guy, and we're kind of like, wait a minute, what's going on? And it's unsettling. So... Yeah. But we went from bad to good to bad again. It's like you said earlier, the transition from like Bush Jr. being elected to Obama, which we thought was the
we're like, yay, we beat the Empire,
of the pro-war Republicans. And then all of a sudden, Trump gets elected, which is like, that's first order.
The destruction of the Hosnian system, just like Starkiller Base is just like we don't need it. What do we need this Hosnian system for? They're a bunch of bums. They don't do nothing for nobody.
It's just like and like nobody saw that coming.
Let's talk about how the practical effects are used in this movie.
Man. I remember that promotional video, but I think before they even released a trailer for The Force Awakens, with JJ talking to the camera, it was like a charity thing where you could like be in the movie or go to the premiere or something, and in the background of him, he's on the set of Jakku, like Nema Outpost, and behind him you see that puppet of like that long-necked, sleepy-eyed thing with like the chickens or tipia or whatever on his back, but I'm looking at that thing going like,
it's
oh
real.
my god, yeah, like, what are you? What's your name? You know? I couldn't even intellectually comprehend the puppeteering that was going into, like, how is this guy moving? Is it a costume? What is it?
Yeah, it's like the Renaissance that we've been waiting for.
Yeah.
Oh, good choice of words there, too.
It's like, finally, puppets are back!
Yeah.
We went from, like, fully practical effects because they didn't have the technology in the 70s and 80s to do computer-generated effects, to all of a sudden the 90s, 2000 movie that...
It went too far. It went...
where they just went CG and it just turned into, like, a cartoon. And then Disney acquired... the Star Wars franchise from Lucas by no small,
$4 billion, which they made back.
I thought it was
already.
$7 billion or something like that.
$4 billion,
Still,
but they've already made more than that back by now.
Yeah, it was a huge investment, and Kathleen Kennedy, spearheading this, this franchise with J.J. Abrams really brought us back to the core values of making such an epic movie, which were, practical effects, shoot on location, and it just made everything so tangible. And now we have this beautiful mesh and blend of practical effects to CG effects, and it just looks amazing. It's what we always wanted.
Yeah.
It's like they're like, oh, bring balance to the Force, but bring balance to special effects.
Oh, okay, sure. But one thing I was thinking, though, because I think that this is the first time I've ever watched from episode 1 through episode... Well, obviously through episode 9, but episode 1 through episode 8. And I think that it has kind of an interesting effect, like that the prequels do have this certain look to all of them. It's a very uniform, or at least a fairly uniform look across all 3 prequels, where it's very CG saturated, and then you move on to the originals, and it looks much more beaten down, almost in universe as like a product of the Empire's effect. You know?
Yeah, no,
so,
for sure.
So I think that it has kind of like a cool...
It makes sense, kind of.
Yeah, it has a visual logic to it, I think.
You know, appropriate effect from a chronological point of view.
Whew, because for the longest time, I mentioned this in my episode 1 video, I think, I used to be a prequel hater for the longest time, like, hater, you know? Like, I just thought, oh, these movies ruined Star Wars, which is ironic now, because everybody's saying Disney's ruining Star Wars, and mwah, I love you, Disney.
Not.
Like, you're bringing Star Wars back to fans like me, and I'm sure fans like these guys, right? And
all of our favorite characters returned. You know,
and we have new great characters too.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes. Speaking of new great characters, I wanted to bring up what is superior about the new movies in contrast to the prequels. And there's one thing I noticed I was missing, and that's BB-8. BB-8 is one of the best things. If he wasn't in the new movies, would they be as good? Probably not. And the prequels have 0 BB-8s. I mean, we see a little R2, not enough. We just have Jar Jar and Jake Lloyd. No new cute droids. No baby Yodas. Nothing. 0. Anyways, sorry.
No, you got to have that sort of like comedic, cute relief. To kind of like offset the darkness of what's going on.
Yeah, if there was no Baby Yoda in The Mandalorian, would anybody care?
Oh, I would still very much care, but he
helps.
He's stealing the show.
I would still watch it too, but it wouldn't bring you as much joy.
Yeah.
Alright, so we can't really talk about The Force Awakens without talking about some of these awesome new characters that we're introduced to in this. Strongest impressions of characters like Rey, Kylo Ren, right? They're like the forefront.
I remember when I first saw Force Awakens, and I've actually only seen it like once, and The Last Jedi too. But I remember thinking that Rey was like very dainty, and I'm just like, there's no way she can be like a badass. You know what I mean? I mean, she like.
We first see her like struggling to survive, though. You know?
No,
like,
I know. I meant like her
slight in frame.
No. I mean, I'm just saying like. As the actor, like the voice, like she could be like a Disney princess easily, which she kind of is in this.
She's pretty adorable.
No. I mean, I like in retrospect, passively watching it while you watch it, I'm like, oh, you know what? She's cool. Like I just like I don't know why I kind of was being a hater. It's not like her thinness. It's like her, like she's very British and she sounds proper. Yeah. You know. It's just, I grew up in the slums. You know, she's like Eliza Doolittle. You know what I mean? It's just like, I'm like, I don't know. You know what I mean? But it's not like her frame that I'm talking about.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
She reminded me, the impression I got from Rey when watching it was she reminds me a lot of a Skywalker. She encompasses some very fascinating traits that remind me of both Jake Lloyd's young Anakin as well as Mark Hamill's young Luke Skywalker. She's got a lot of raw talent with the Force, which is that Jake Lloyd aspect of it. And then, but she's older and a bit more rough around the edges because she's a scavenger, which reminds me a bit more of Luke as a
farm boy.
Moisture farmer. So, you know, there's this whole Skywalker thing, which is why I think it's appropriate that this next film is going to be called The Rise of Skywalker, because something in my gut tells me that she is a Skywalker. And that may not be the case, but I mean, God, if it doesn't feel like it to me. I mean, just if I go with that feeling, that natural instinct, that's just really what it feels. And I don't know how she would relate as a Skywalker, but goodness.
Well, I have a theory, and I'm probably going to try and make a theory video just to lock in my ideas before The Rise of Skywalker comes out to see what I got right, what I got wrong. But one of my theories that I've had since I think about a week after The Force Awakens first premiered was, and this is half-baked,
we talked about this.
Yeah, we did talk about this. So, you know, you don't have to believe it or anything. This is just what I've been thinking. I'm not married to it. If it doesn't come to pass, you know, I'm fine with it. I'm going to love whatever they do. But the theory is that Rey is the reincarnation of Anakin Skywalker. Yeah.
Wait a minute. Okay, so let's talk about that briefly.
Well, okay, but we shouldn't go too much into it because...
But I have a question about that. So, what is the actual time frame that The Force Awakens exists after Return of the Jedi? What is that, like?
30 years.
30 years. And how old is Rey in this?
Like 19, I think.
Okay, so the reincarnation or transfer of life force would have been about 10, 11 years after Anakin died.
Although, there's also a theory out there that I've heard that that Kylo is the reincarnation of Anakin, or Darth Vader, and that he was conceived, supposedly, the night of the Battle of Endor.
Huh.
And so it could have just been like, Vader died and it was just like, sloop!
Oh, so is Kylo Ren like 30?
Yeah, he's older than
He looks good.
That could happen. And Kylo it is a Skywalker.
Right, yeah.
You know, so...
Which people are debating online because, you know, women don't carry bloodlines.
Oh.
Only men do.
And they don't... I mean, I do think the idea of reincarnation is cool, or would be cool in these movies, but I feel like they have never really talked about it.
I wouldn't have thought so either, but it was something in The Force Awakens that made me think it, which is, Finn is talking about, like, we gotta get out of here, there's no escaping the First Order, and Maz Kanata is, like, looking at him, and she's adjusting her goggles, and she climbs up on the table, and he's like, Solo, what is she doing? And she's like, you live long enough, you see the same eyes in different people, and you have the eyes of someone who wants to run, or something like that. And when I first saw it, I didn't really think about it, and then I rewatched it again that same week, and I was like, what a weird line to put in there. I get that she's like over 1,000 years old, so it's something that it's a kind of throwaway line that they can kind of come back and point to as like a clue.
Yeah, but I mean, it's someone who wants to run. She's just saying like she's seen that that.
Right. No, I get that too. It could be nothing, but I also think, you know, like, oh, she's from a desert planet, which karmically could be like her suffering, since Anakin has stated his distaste for sand, and she's an innate mechanic. She's innately gifted with the Force.
That's
she
true.
She gets into the Falcon and pilots it extremely well.
She is one of the more fascinating characters to me from this new line. You know?
Oh, yeah,
and
for sure.
By design, you know, like J.J. Abrams' famous like mystery box practice is all present and accounted for in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, we did get some great new characters in this. You know, Kylo Ren is a fascinating character.
I love Kylo.
He's a lot more unstable than his idol before him. You know, which I think makes him a real wild card in the series. We all see him, you know, heavily immersed into the dark side, but we don't really know what's happening under the surface. And then there's Snoke, which, you know, is this whole other character that we never really get to learn much about at all. He's just sort of a seat filler for an upcoming Palpatine, I guess, in Rise of Skywalker. And then, of course, there's Phasma, which is a whole other concept for Stormtrooper that we've never seen before.
Thank you, Delilah S. Dawson, for giving us the Phasma story.
Yeah, so there's a whole lot of really neat new additions to the storyline that I think were very well put together, instead of just like, oh, we need another character, or let's just, you know, somebody else. Like there was real intention behind all of these characters before they were added in.
Oh, and Finn, the Stormtrooper turned Resistance hero, was an invention of Lawrence Kasdan, who wrote Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and Solo, and co-wrote The Force Awakens. But he was just like, oh, I think that this would be a cool idea. And I know that in The Rise of Skywalker, that is going to come back around and play some kind of role. I'm guessing in helping the Resistance, like, recruit more forces. I'm guessing some of those forces will probably be former First Order.
I can imagine so. I think everything that happens in these new films is entirely intentional.
Yeah.
So there was one thing about this film that surprised me, that when I saw it for the first time. I really expected to see Luke Skywalker in it versus just that shot at the end.
Uh-huh.
You know, and I did like that the whole film turned out to be a pursuit to find him.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great setup for the next film to come. But we all went into this with an expectation, like, oh my God, Mark Hamill's returning as Luke Skywalker. This is going to be big. What's going to happen? And you're watching the whole movie going, is he even in this? You know?
Yeah.
But it's a real opportunity for us to really develop some characters and end some storylines as well.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that they did it this way, because, I mean, part of their intention was that if they introduced Luke earlier, that all attention would just be there. Like, okay, what's Luke doing? Like, that's why I'm here. And it's nice to just kind of keep it as like don't worry, we're still gonna have these characters, but it's, as Luke says in The Last Jedi, it's not gonna go the way you think, you know? And to just kind of keep him there as like we're taking care of all of this, you know? Like, we assure you we have Luke still, but I mean, Luke does cast a huge shadow. As a kid, he was my idol. He was my entry point into this world, and so...
And so did Han Solo, which is why I think that was important that, what happens to him in this film happens.
And that Han Solo becomes the Obi-Wan character. He is the bygone hero who is helping usher these new heroes into the world, you know?
And then Luke's the Yoda in the next one.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that, yeah. Well, and Solo has this wonderful line in this film, which is sort of a coin flip from where he was in A New Hope when we first meet him, when he talks about, I've never seen anything to lead me to believe there's one all-powerful force that controls everything. And then in this one, when he's meeting Rey for the first time, he does take that Obi-Wan approach where he's just like, it's real. It's all true. Everything you've heard. You know,
so hopefully he learned how to become a Force ghost? Hopefully.
Maybe. Yeah. But, it's these wonderful, opposite imagery of these characters. Beautiful, like, way to bring these things full circle. All of these storylines, even with a 30-year gap in them, they all felt complete.
Mm-hmm.
And with real growth, even though we have this gap that we know a little about, it still felt right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really have to say, thank you, J.J. Abrams. Thank you, Kathleen Kennedy. Thank you, Disney. You filled that void.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and on that note,
let's do it. Let's start this awesome movie. All right. Alright, so we just did it. We just watched The Force Awakens, and wowza. Love that movie.
Yeah. There's so many small, I'm going to say unnecessary details that in so many of the scenes that really elevate them.
Mm-hmm.
Very wonderful work. It's like when BB-8's moving through the desert at the beginning of the movie, and that little
that
creature puppet actually pops up, and it's like, and that didn't need to be there, but it was still a nice choice to really draw intrigue to every little bit that's happening in this film.
Yeah, it really paints in the corners. Like,
yeah.
I mean, which is true, I guess, of all Star Wars movies. Even like the prequels have like digital things going on in the background where it's like, oh, if you zoom in really closely, you can see like R2-D2 tripping a battle droid. True thing in Revenge of the Sith, which I only learned about like last week. But, yeah, like, but yeah, with things like the puppets, or I mean, on Dakar, the resistance base, there's like so much stuff going on, and we were talking about like, look, there's the Falcon, there's an X-Wing, there's an X-Wing, like huge droids walking around, there's Admiral Akbar, there's Nyan, you know, like all of these different practical creations just like just everywhere you can see.
We're saying that they can just, since Disney owns Star Wars, they can just take those props and put them in a park. So it's
like let's do it practical. Build the whole thing. We'll just ship it over to Galaxy's Edge. And
get our money's worth out of it.
Yeah.
And you got to appreciate that. There's so last week we spoke a bit about how we kind of got this theory feeling that you become sensitive to or you start to become sensitive to the Force when you become alert of the Force.
Yeah, aware of it, yeah.
And this awareness. And we're seeing that again with Rey in this film. She is, we sense that she's strong with the Force, but until Han Solo sort of says it's all true, and you know, and she's kind of like, oh, it is, you know, kind of a thing. Does she start becoming actually more alert?
Yeah.
And then Maz Kanata, thank you. I always keep wanting to say Katana. Maz Kanata grabs Rey's hand and says, you know, the Force is strong, you know, and you have to feel it. And that sort of even helps her a bit more to become in tune, because this is being almost beat into her that it's like, hey, this is real. Start believing in it, start trusting it. And so she can't help but become more attuned to that.
And also with Kylo, like she's experiencing the Force, like he's freezing her body, he's probing her mind, and it's like, yeah, it's like when he probes her mind, that's when she's able to probe his mind.
Right, she's realizing, if you can do this, why can't I do this?
Yeah, and then shortly thereafter, it's like a scene later, she does the Jedi mind trick on FN 007 to get out of her her interrogation chair thing. Yeah.
So I really do believe it's all based on an actual awareness,
which makes sense too. Thinking back to A New Hope, because so online the endless chatter of people going like, but it's just a remake of A New Hope, and it's just like, why Rey's a Mary Sue? Why doesn't she have any training? You know, and it's just like, people could say, well, Luke didn't really have a lot of training when he piloted an X-Wing to blow up the Death Star. He only flew his T-16 Skyhopper. You know, planet side on Tatooine. There's no explanation for why he's like such a great fighter pilot, you know. But again, if we think back to like, oh, it's awareness of the Force makes you more in tune with the Force.
And Luke had no training to communicate with Obi-Wan, but Obi-Wan is able to communicate with him via Force goes right there in A New Hope once he dies.
Yeah, and it's just like that but just kind of that exposure, that constant exposure in A New Hope that Luke has to the Force, where he had maybe never even heard of it the day before, you know, we first meet him. It's like Obi-Wan's telling him about it. He's telling him, he's like, hey, your father wasn't some navigator on a spice freighter. He was a Jedi Knight who fought in the Clone Wars, and he worked with me, and you know, you are part of this epic history that you had no idea about. And it's like, that is maybe more ultimately vital to his becoming a Jedi Knight than, okay, so here's how you do a front flip, you know, and grab onto a vine with a backpack on, you know, and a little green cutie on your back.
It's more to it than just acrobatics.
Yeah. Or swinging a lightsaber and stuff.
So,
but haters gonna hate.
Any thoughts on this one?
There's R2-D2 getting that rest of the map. How he got it, we don't know. There's a mystery there. That's
true, yeah. Or like how he woke up.
Yeah, my guess is like when the
Starkiller Base?
Starkiller Base, thank you. Once that explodes, maybe like some kind of outgoing transmission like he catches, maybe.
Maybe. I have no idea. It seems like the kind of thing that they might answer in Rise of Skywalker, since we know that like Luke was with R2 when the whole Jedi Temple, or Jedi Training Academy, whatever, went down. So, yeah, I don't know. Or maybe they won't. Maybe they won't answer it, and it'll be one of those things like how did Leia remember her mother, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hope that they close that little one right there, because what brings him back? He's been on power
watching
mode
it kind
since
of raises an eyebrow.
goes away, and Luke didn't come back. It's like, what determined this timing? They could have used that useful bit of information, that extra map, before the whole Starkiller base thing happened.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And especially since they've had the two maps have essentially pieces to the map have been in the same room now for a little bit of time. Mm-hmm. Why now, R2? What do you got? What are you playing at? But
I do feel like Rey seemed less like an Eliza Doolittle this time around, or like a princessy. I think maybe it's just like the British accent, you know? I'm so used to like them having American accents, be like, hey, Scrappy, you know, New York. I mean, not really New York, but you know what I mean? That vibe of like, you know? Not like, baby, I Terry, you know? So, but I think it's just like an accent thing, but I don't know. She seems cool. I like her.
Yeah, I like Rey. Mm-hmm. I think that they're funny, because now, just being aware of all the, like, hater criticism out there, just like thinking, oh, like she corrects Han Solo or something, and there's one part where he's just like, now where's something, and she's like, oh, over there, you know, and he's just like, you know, just kind of but I don't know, I think some fans have like made too big a deal of like certain small moments, or like, I mean, as I'm sure we'll talk about next week, like with the Last Jedi and the Mary Poppins thing, you know, just like,
oh yes,
it's like I noticed this thing, and so it has to be kind of perceived this
Mary Poppins thing?
When Leia floats back to the ship after getting shot out.
It was referred to as her Mary Poppins moment.
Okay,
yeah,
we'll come back to that.
Oh, so one thing.
A lot of things. So there's been a lot of criticism after the initial hype of The Force Awakens wore down, and people were like, oh, it's good, happy to see practical effects and everything, but then people started to turn in their esteem toward it, saying like, I don't know, it follows A New Hope a little too closely, don't you think? And but I don't think. I think that it's like a very clearly intentional, beyond homage certainly, but a kind of echoing, you know, an echoing where it's like, it's a very new story, and to me it seems unimaginative to see it as one-to-one, like, oh, they're exactly the same because they follow these familiar beats. I think the familiar is what gets them through it. That setup scene for the attack on Starkiller Base kind of goes through that, because when they had A New Hope, when A New Hope happened, they went in, they found that weakness, and they said, maybe we can blow it up. We're going to try. But in this one, Han Solo says, well, you can blow it up, can't you? We can always blow it up. Yeah. That's a direct reference to like, well, we did this in the past, why don't we try that again? Let's draw from our experiences. So I don't see it so much as an echo of the first one, or, you know, a lack of originality. I see that as a strategic offensive move. It's like,
well, but they're not just talking about Starkiller Base alone. They're talking about the Sand Planet. They're talking about the person like learning and then their master getting killed. But I mean, there are many different
parallels,
points, you know. Yeah.
But I think that's just coincidental. There's a lot of sand planets in this universe, a lot of forest planets, a lot of aliens. You know, you're gonna see a lot of repetitive stuff throughout this whole thing.
Yeah. But
it's just like also people who talk crap about The Walking Dead, they're like, oh, it's just they have to, you know, hide from zombies and then like defeat a bad guy,
and then they find a new shelter, and then they have to leave that shelter because something goes wrong, and it's like,
it's the nature of the world.
That's probably what the post-apocalypse is like.
Yeah,
you know?
But like the bad guys are different, you know, like everything surrounding
develops.
Those points are different, you know. So just because like there's these root things, like it's. Yeah, if that's the nature of that universe, and that's what happens there, and that's the problems that occur, you're gonna run around the same crap, you know?
Yeah, it's like Game of Thrones. It's like, people keep getting killed in you know, dishonorable ways.
And this person's in charge now.
That's what medieval England was like.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. People killed people, and new kings rose to power.
Exactly. If that's like how the world is, you're gonna run into repetitions.
One of my biggest gripes with the haters of this movie and the whole Force Awakens is A New Hope, and there's no originality and it's garbage. It revolves around the criticism of Starkiller Base, where it's just like, okay, we've seen the Death Star, next, like, we get it, a planet killer, like let's come up with something else.
This isn't a planet killer, this is a solar system killer.
Yeah, it's a solar system killer for one thing, which is, like, granted an even bigger threat. But I think that the idea of the Death Star is still just, like a crazy idea for a weapon. And this, where it's just like, oh, we can just wipe your entire solar system off the map. You know,
from across the galaxy.
From across the galaxy. We don't even need to be, like, within a certain range.
Yeah.
We can just reach across and...
It's powered differently, too.
Yeah,
So
it doesn't have a main reactor the way the Death Star did.
Or run on kyber crystals, because it was like they just took out the Jedi, so they had access to, like, all of this, like, kyber crystals that were never going to be used by anybody, at least the thinking of the Empire. And so yeah, it's a different weapon, it operates differently, it has a different effect, but also it's terrifying. And for people who say, like, oh, we already saw it in A New Hope, we didn't get to see it from Alderaan's perspective in A New Hope.
Oh.
And we did get to see it from Hosnian Prime's perspective, and that was so scary. That was my one reservation when I recommended it to my boss at the time, when I was saying, I was like, you should take your kids, but there is this one scary moment, you know, where it's like Hiroshima but on a planetary scale, you know. It's
what would it look like from your point of view if your planet was about to go in such a way? You're seeing the people around you looking up in the sky turning bright red, and you're just kind of like, what is that?
The terror is it's crazy, and it's awesome that they captured it in a way that's somehow palatable to even small children.
Yeah,
oh,
that moment when you realize you're gonna die and you can't run.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
So you just stand there and watch in horror.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I did think Kylo Ren's temper tantrums were pretty funny.
Uh-huh.
Just like Darth Vader's very like calm, cool, and collective. Like the most you see him like get mad is just like joke.
Or like he'll wring his hands behind his back or something, you know?
Mm-hmm. Or he'll like steady your finger.
Like,
yeah. Go back to
you
this
are part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor.
But it's like, fuck! And it's just like, it's like, Dad, you destroyed another room.
You're costing this order a lot of money. We need to find him another medium outlet.
Get him a stress ball.
Yeah.
Fidget spinner, right?
Uh-huh.
There's even a couple of stormtroopers who see him get up a room and then they just turn around and walk the other way.
Nope.
They're just
they're happening again.
Remember that old boss? I liked him better. This guy's a dick.
He just choked the people at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kylo definitely has got some real stability issues. They say they're still good in him. I don't know. He's got too much of that 8-year-old boy who just hates his parents because they won't let him play video games before dinner.
I believe that those can be good too.
Yeah,
I believe that those little boys still have.
But it's that same raw hate, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's that 8-year-old temper tantrum hate.
If anyone needed medication, it's Kylo Ren. He's they want to kill people.
He's just having a hard time with things. I'm a Bendemptionist, as they say.
We shall see.
I believe he's coming around.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Oh man, I remember the first time I saw it when he took off his mask. I was just like I'd seen Adam Driver before, but I was just like the way they styled his hair, the way the softness of the way he's depicted when he first takes off his mask. It's just like, oh, you're just a boy, you know,
baby.
Yeah, you shouldn't be doing all of these mean things. You should be studying your books and practicing calligraphy.
Yeah, calligraphy. Practicing your spells. Why does he wear the helmet? He doesn't need it for anything in particular.
Well, if his hero's Darth Vader, he's
Is it so shallow as that?
Yeah, I think so.
It's a helmet, not a mask, but it serves multiple functions, I think. It it changes his voice.
Yeah.
It conceals his identity. It hides his expression. You know, so he
Yeah.
could be feeling something and not expressing it. You know,
There's
Because
that,
he's
but-
still Ben Solo, but wants to be viewed as Kylo Ren.
Mhm.
But like, well, yeah, with the voice changing, he wants to appear scary, you know. Like,
I forget if it was. I think it was Joseph Campbell who said, "If a man wears a mask, he is two men." You know, meaning that like there are these two sides of yourself, at least that you're trying to portray. You know,
And that explains a line in the next film by Snoke, who's questioning Kylo Ren's loyalty when he says, "Yet you still wear that mask or that
it's
helmet."
like you're still just a boy in a mask.
yeah, it's a huge diss.
It's a big diss.
I would have been pissed. You're my hero. You're my leader.
Yeah.
So that's it. Maybe Kylo Ren, whenever he's not wearing the mask, he still sees himself as Ben Solo, and he's afraid of that turning to the light side.
Yeah, I mean, we see in this too that he's mentally trying to like, and Vader did it too. That destroying of that former identity. You know, like I am no longer that.
But he's not that far along.
Right. Yeah. I cried in theaters the first time I saw the scene on the bridge with Ben and Han Solo. Not just when he stabbed Han Solo. Spoilers if you haven't seen it, but why would you be watching this if you hadn't? But when he took the mask off and he's just saying like I'm being torn apart, I'm just like, oh my god, this kid he's like in so far over his head, you know? And I was just feeling so bad for him, and then he like turns the lightsaber on. I'm just like, oh, what are you doing, boy? Like it's gonna be so much harder for you to climb your way back, you know? Because yeah, I look at him and I see that he's clearly capable of horrible things. He killed Lor San Tekka on Jakku, but yeah, I don't know. I just you can see that he's not the main driving force behind all of this stuff. That he's been sold some kind of ideology that's propelling this forward. You know?
He's the atom driving force. Sorry.
Oh my god.
Okay.
I feel like I didn't remember a lot of what I saw this time around, so I'm glad I rewatched it.
Oh, good. I thought you were saying, like, from what we just saw, you're like, I remembered it before, watching it this time, I don't remember.
I think I just have trouble, like, this particular movie I feel like has, like, it feels like it has, like, a lot of action, right? It's like,
Yeah.
It's like, so sometimes when things are too action heavy, my brain checks out very easily.
There was a part where Finn and Poe stole that TIE fighter, and they're flying away, and Finn's like, did you see that? Did you see that? And Steph's just like, I didn't see it. Sorry, things were blowing up, and I just tuned out.
Tuned out. He says, like, pew, pew, you know, just like, okay, next. So, I think I had an easier time focusing this time around.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it takes a few. Yeah.
So there you go, folks. That was The Force Awakens. You've heard our thoughts. Clearly, we all love it. Yeah, BB-8 is pretty hunky, I guess, if you're into droids. I think it might be my favorite of the Disney era saga films, but by a slight margin, because I also very, very much love The Last Jedi. So those are our thoughts on The Force Awakens, but we'd love to know what you guys think. I mean, you know, I'm sure some of you out there are probably not so hot on it, but whatever. Let us know why we're wrong, if that's what you're into. Or let us know where it stacks up for you. And be sure to tune in next week when we do our coverage of The Last Jedi. I'm sure there will be many different opinions, but I also know a lot of people feel like we do and have a lot of love for that movie, so I'm excited for that episode. I guess that's it for now. Until next time, good journey, and may the Force be with you. That's right. We'll be there for that, and it's all good, it's all gravy. What am I talking about?